CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. Welcome back to CMMS Radio. If you're not watching, you can see him on screen. That wouldn't make sense. If you're not watching, you can't see him on screen. It's Alex Bolan. He's with Digital Thinker Incorporated. And don't forget, Alex is also the one with his incredible team and all the sponsors that come in that puts together the Streamline Conferences events. That's plural, baby. Plural. And we've been doing a lot of talking lately about all these big plans for February 2026, bigger venue, a lot of cool creative things happening. We'll have more about that for you on CMMS Radio. You can find it wherever, you get your Digital Thinker info, Streamline Conferences info. Anyway, Alex Bolan, welcome back to CMMS Radio. And we are going to talk about a presentation that you were doing that I wanted to make sure people that follow CMMS Radio can get kind of a feel for. And it's really around leave maturity to cheese and unlock immediate operational excellence with APM. For anybody that doesn't know what APM is, that's asset performance management. Essentially, it doesn't matter about your software or your system. This is going to be all around the approach and how you optimize your operations. And there's a lot of companies out there, companies, consultants, whatever, lump them all together. Maybe that's unfair, but I'm going to say it. They want you to mature before you're ready to mature. And without giving you too much detail, I want to have Alex kind of start us off right there and just tell me what that means, Alex, when it comes to these companies and people that expect you or want you and push you to mature before it's time to mature.
So I think it's not necessarily pushing people to mature early. I think maybe my school of thought on it is maybe I need to stop saying the word maybe. It is. Let's just be real. It is. This is what's happening today. It's the inverse. There's a lot of consultants, software vendors, you name it, who have really, honestly, it's a vested interest in keeping you from getting to the next level. And it is, so when we say leave maturity to cheese, right? Like it's quite simply put, why would you wait to start looking at asset performance and measuring their performance if you have to reach a certain threshold, right? Like I'm not saying you have to immediately begin asset performance management or measuring you should start measuring your asset performance probably from the beginning. But it's really, I think I got frustrated with the rhetoric that if you're not at maintenance maturity level here or industry 4.0, APM should be nowhere near your thought process. I want to call hooey on that. I don't think that's necessarily true. Now, I do think, you do need to have a good foundational element to build upon for asset performance management and a good strategy that goes around with it. What does that look like? I don't know, collecting core data on how your assets are performing. Why are they failing? Maybe you don't necessarily have to understand why they're failing, but at least maybe tracking and recording like that they are failing. What are some of the probable causes of failure? Why are they problem children, so to speak? So I unashamedly stole the leave the cheese to maturity from my good friend Mark LaPlante at the on the Hexagon APM team, who sits on the ISO committee. Great dude, guy, he's got nuggets. And he said that to me on a phone call one day, and I was like, I wrote it down. I said, I'm stealing this, and he said, go for it. So yeah, that was kind of what this whole webinar was about. Was you may be closer to true asset performance management as a strategy than you think you are, and don't let anybody else tell you different. So, we lean, and obviously, we run a consulting company. That's what we do, is try to guide our clients in the best way possible. So it's a little, pot calling the kettle black in some instances. But when did your success stop becoming important to the consultants that you've hired to help get you to that next level of success, right? Like when did you, as you being the manufacturer, maybe become the afterthought on where you need to get to next? And so I'm not trying to preach that this is the way, the truth, and the light, right? I want to encourage us to think differently. I want to challenge the status quo a little bit, and I want us to, as a collective, maybe what we have been told for the last 10 years isn't the right thing, right? Maybe it's not. Maybe we need to look at things from a different perspective. So anyway, that's a very long-winded way for me to say that I just wanted to shed a light on, you might be closer to true asset performance management than you really think you are. And then the other side, and I know I'm being long-winded, I'm sorry, I just get really wound
You're
up
good.
about it. But the other side to it is, if you keep telling yourself you have to get to this level before you can start, introducing, whether it's an APM strategy or an application or even just measuring asset performance, you're never going to do it. You're never going to get there. You're always going to tell yourself, I'm not ready. I'm not there yet. My PM compliance is abysmal. We're just not ready. I'm still in a reactive state. We're just not ready. I have labor shortage. We're just not ready. It's a negative mindset that we just need to squash immediately, because you could probably solve some of those problems if you were looking at how your assets are performing. And so that's where that came from, and
This
that's
is,
part of the message of what I wanted to push out today. There's a lot more to it than that, right? But that's the core heart of it.
of course. And it's not, we're not going to knock it all out in a single conversation, but what's refreshing about this is, uh, like I've got whatever fireworks going off in my mind about how this relates to the concept of the revolution that needs to happen
Hmm.
when we talk about how we look at, how we think about, and how we actually practice maintenance management, maintenance and reliability, and absolutely asset management, which asset performance management is really, it's all about asset management, but within a certain framework. And there's a lot of stuff that happens in our respective environments, whether it's manufacturing or otherwise, that we actually, I don't know if I'm right about this, but I think we, like all people, we start to rely on the things that we don't have to do. In other words, we get comfortable with the excuse rather than doing the work. And I want to be careful, because it's not just a dig and hey, you can do better. It's more of, hey, I understand. We understand. So this is why the messaging seems to be the same every time we talk about stuff like this, because we want to inspire somebody out there to change it. And it ebbs and it flows, and those opportunities present themselves. And then somebody does exactly what you said. They're like, well, we're not ready for that yet. They might actually be. And then there's this idea that you can't focus on two things at once. That's true. However, you can have multiple things being kind of nurtured and incorporated and leveraged along the way. It's almost like saying, oh, I can't go start working out until I quit drinking Coca-Cola. Well, that's not true. You can
Yeah.
go work out and you can still have a terrible habit of drinking Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe that's a weird analogy, but I'm
No,
just trying to
it's
put it
true.
into like superhuman terms. And you're not trying to tear down the industry at all. You're trying to inspire it. That's all you're really doing here. This is not about taking
Yeah.
shots.
No, it's not about taking shots. It's it's you did put it very well, Greg. It's very easy and it's natural. Let me emphasize that again. It's very natural to get your head, I don't want to say stuck in the weeds, but like, you, whether reliability engineer, maintenance manager, maintenance technician, director of operations, any role title, right? Like, your job is running the manufacturing plant to its best extent possible and meeting the yield. And asset management and maintenance management can quickly become an afterthought, because you have a lot of other things on your plate. And so, we see this, and I'm sure you did too, Greg. Like, you see a lot of maintenance managers who are also their CMMS administrator. I mean, they're two jobs in the same hat right there. They're not only managing an application and adhering to the discipline and the right collection of the data, which is basically a full-time job, but they're also managing the entire department. And it's a lot to do. So I don't fault anybody for, I don't want to call it complacent either, or I don't even want to call it getting stuck in the status quo of you're just doing your job. And it's hard to have the mental capacity to get past it. And so that's why I think we as vendors and consultants need to do a better job of challenging our customers and our clients to just think a little bit more outside the box. It's not that we need you to pull your head out from underwater, take a gasp of air, look around and say, okay, I'm ready to go back down for more. It's like, I want to get under the water with you and understand why you're drowning, and then let's figure it out together. And so how can we help you do that, and how can we help go in that manner? And yeah, you're right, like it's going back to not shot calling, man. Like as time has evolved, we've learned more, and there's more technology at our fingertips, which makes things more confusing. And then there's newer strategies coming to play. Case in point, the new updated revisions of the ISO 55000 standards, right? There's a lot to unpack in that, a lot. And how do we do it effectively without getting lost in the noise or promoting a specific agenda? And I think where it comes down to, especially from us as vendors, is we need to do a better job of understanding our customers. We need to do a better job of asking them why and what's the problem, and not just immediately offering a solution. I had a good friend of mine tell me one time, because I think you knew, but for maybe those of you that don't know me, I used to be an EMT paramedic for some time. And I worked for a 911 system, so I was on the ambulance, right? Your worst day of the life, you call 911, you get this guy showing up. And somebody who has been mentoring me recently said, when you're trying to put the message out to the public, so to speak, about what Digital Thinker does and maintenance management and fighting the fight and reactive, you don't lead with the solution, because you don't know what the symptoms are yet. You don't know what the true cause of failure is. That's like me as an EMT showing up to your house and you're choking, and I put a tourniquet on your leg, high five my buddy, say we saved the day, and then we walk out of the room. Does nobody any good. So we need to not lead with what the presumed challenges are. We need to be inquisitive. We need to be curious. And I think what's funny is that it's like full circle. It goes right back into, well, what is reliability? It's being curious. It's understanding not only why things break, but how can we prevent them from breaking, and what measures can we put in place to keep that from happening in the future, all in the name and the fight of uptime. It all goes back to that, right? So, I got on a high horse, man.
Yeah, for sure. Look, and what's important about that right there, that statement right there, is there's the intent is there, and that's what matters about it. So high horse or not, soapbox or not, the intent is to make things better. It's not to take those shots at people and say, oh yeah, you're a dirtbag, or your company is just after somebody's money. That stuff we don't have to focus on so much. That's the potential for that is out there. But getting back to this concept of maintenance maturity dictating when you do certain things, you said it earlier. If the foundational elements are in place within an organization, and through that, upon that, we find opportunities. Okay, we're struggling here, we're struggling there, we've noticed this trend or that trend. When you identify that problem, it's time to solve it. And if asset performance management can, in fact, be brought in, that doesn't necessarily mean you're bringing in some huge, expensive technology stack. What that actually means is that you're identifying a fit for asset performance management, solving the problems that you have. And it will always go back to that first understanding. Clients themselves, the environments themselves, rarely have the time to stop and say, let's stop for a minute and understand ourselves better. What's actually happening? And because that is disruptive. And I think what we're saying is, or what you're saying is, that you get that, you understand that, and I'm not trying to tear you down over it. I'm trying to say, hey, there's people that can help you to, get in there and understand you, thus helping you understand yourself to see if there is a way to improve it. Now, that was a big build up to an actual question. I'm wondering, because I don't think I've ever asked this question. When it comes to asset performance management, if I have, let's say, the foundational elements in place, I've got a good culture, a team that's really bought in, they're doing well, they communicate, they support one another. We've even got maybe operators and maintenance people that are kind of aligned and they help each other out. Can asset performance management be introduced into an environment absent technology? Are there strategies that aren't technology dependent to create an asset performance management environment?
Yeah, I think so, right? Like, for example, I think the most effective way to introduce a like non-technology type strategy around a asset performance management is you're not trying to eat the whole pie at once, meaning you're not trying to measure the performance of every single asset that you have an inventory of. Where what you're trying to do is, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, is you want to leverage and maximize your return on asset, not your return on investment, the return on the asset. And so you want to pick, this is just my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt. You probably want to pick your 10 most critical assets, put them in a hierarchy or a matrix of what is most important to your production to least important on just those 10. And then let's start looking at the performance behind it. So, and I think it's easy to, without technology, to understand their performance, right? Like, are we doing maintenance that is meaningful to it? Going back to a conversation we've had before, are we doing the right maintenance at the right time on the right pieces of equipment? That's APM in a nutshell. And then are those activities driving the result and the level of performance we're looking for, which I think the end goal is not only meeting throughput and, profit goals or production goals, but are we minimizing um, quality impacts? Are we still producing a quality product with the right maintenance involved inside of it, right? Like, so for me, asset performance management, like reliability culture in some sense, like everybody can have a hand in asset management and asset performance management. You don't need technology to do that. You just need to be able to empower people with the right culture to, it's almost see something, say something, but what can we do to maximize their performance outside of this? And are we maximizing the performance in a way that is meeting our other corporate objectives while meeting quality standards? So it's a complex scenario, right? A lot of pegs that got to fall into the right holes. But the thing that set this up, right? Like, perfect world scenario, right? Like we've got the perfect team and we've got the perfect culture, which is great. And one thing you said that I think is even more critical than that, we have operators doing first line of defense, right? So initial troubleshooting, or maybe they're able to do, very quick on the spot maintenance or correction checks on their equipment so they can keep the things moving, right? Like that's, to me, that's asset performance management, and that's asset care, and that's reliability. You're getting everybody to be on the same team. And we joke a lot that there's this uh, you know divide, riff, maintenance versus operations, who's going to win the battle. And I think the maintenance guys always laugh because we think we should win because maintenance is important, and the operations guy laugh and say we're idiots because production is more important than anything. I'm kind of tired of that narrative, and I want to squash it because this is super cheesy.
I can squash it
You
right
can't,
now.
yeah, right. But you can't have operational
You want to hear
excellence if
it?
you don't have maintenance excellence. Yeah, tell me, just squash it. Let's hear it.
So, look, uh, maybe not everybody on the planet is going to understand this, but I think a pretty high percentage of people, whether they're maintenance people, people in leadership that don't know what a wrench is or anything like that, but a lot of people understand football, and it can be either one. It could be the one with helmets, it could be the one with your feet. There's this
Hmm.
thing called offense, and there's this thing called defense. So, whether it's APM related or not, I do know that this is related to reliability and very specifically maintenance. Maintenance is about blocking and tackling,
Yeah,
right? To preserve
yeah,
the integrity of equipment, which are our assets that need to perform. And we want more performance, but within the parameters of their design intent. Now, if we look at our various football teams, it could be college, it could be, and remember, it could be the footy football one too. You've got your offense, right? Your production. Offense is production. It doesn't mean defense doesn't produce. They produce turnovers and things like that, and they do super cool, heroic shit, right? But you need that offense to put points on the board, at least something. You need to get a 3 up there, right? Well, you need defense to preserve that production. And that's how I say we squash it. Now, nobody's going to take that and go, yep, oh, problem solved, and tomorrow everything's going to be great everywhere all the time. That ain't going to happen. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to interject on that because too often these departments, when we talk about operations and maintenance specifically, just those two departments, they are focused on what they do. They are focused on how they're measured. They are focused on their own individual production, if you will. Operators have to make stuff. Maintenance has to make that possible. And then maintenance gets just beat over the head every time something fails, breaks, or whatever,
Yeah.
when we actually need to work hand in hand in tandem. So operators can do more on the basic maintenance side, but even simple things like, so now I'm switching back into the real world of maintenance and reliability, asset management, asset performance management, where the shift changeover inspection or the ability to recognize and understand something that's not quite right. You might need to bring it to somebody's attention. Those are those things, and you could stack a few more in there that operators can do, and some will, and some need to know that they can do it. That'll make it
Yes.
better for maintenance, because then maintenance is doing maintenance rather than constantly dealing with repairs. And
Yeah.
on the
What
other
is it?
side,
Joe Anderson says, maintenance isn't repairing things. Maintenance, I forget the exact quote he says, but I think you get what I'm getting at, right? Like, if you're just fixing shit all the time, that's not maintenance. That's fixing shit. Maintenance is trying
that's
to
right.
prevent
That's right.
the shit from breaking. So
That's exactly right. Well, and George, speaking of Joe Anderson, George Williams will tell you the role of the job of maintenance is the conveyance of risk, because they're performing maintenance and they can see what's coming. A lot of them are
yeah,
machine whisperers, or they have that visual opportunity with that asset to see something coming. And operators and maintenance, when they are working in tandem and they understand the different ways they support one another, they become damn near unstoppable.
they do.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
man, I love this. I'm getting fired up. So I got a lot of things, but let me build on that. So speaking of George, good buddy. Um, I had a I texted him the other night and was like, "Hey, if you got a minute, I want to chat with you on the phone." Not thinking he would just call me on the spot, and he did. It was like 8 o'clock at night, and I loved it. And so I'm talking to George, and we're talking about life and some of the struggles we have, running small businesses, and where we're finding wins. It's just really good conversation. But then I really wanted to get his opinion on a few things, and I know about this. I'm working on this kind of radical presentation that I want to share with the world really soon about, why I think we're watching America's manufacturing collapse happen in front of us in real time. Um, so I was talking to George about that and just getting some of his input, and he reminded me of a session he did at Streamline. I think it was 2 years ago, and he dropped this quote on me. That is, he said it a lot. Um, your finance department does not get to dictate your maintenance budget. Your assets do. You can try to dictate that budget all you want, but your assets are going to have the ultimate control of it at the end of the day. And he didn't say this, so I'm going to, maybe expand upon it a little bit. It is up to you or us as the good stewards of the assets to listen to them and be able to communicate to leadership or the primary stakeholders that we're well in tune, like machine whisperers, like you said. We're listening to these pieces of equipment and it's not working what we're doing, and we need to expose this level of risk a little bit more. We need to do a better job of communicating that to the powers that be. And I think we can easily get frustrated with, well, they're just not listening to me. Probably a little bit, but let's take a little bit of a step inward or look inward and say, well, am I conveying this in the right way? Am I telling them the right story and how it's important to them. So, I jokingly call it the $1 billion question. How do we speak clearly to manufacturing leadership in a way that they can understand and then care about asset management and maintenance management? If you've got it figured out, give me a call. I'd love to hear the secret sauce on this, but I don't think anybody has yet. But anyway, George also opened my mind to a new term that I will admit my ignorance on this. We as vendors are so consumed with trying to provide a return on investment on the software, the consultancy, the process improvement. What's the return on investment? And that's a good question. But I'm also sick and tired of hearing that term too, because it's just like, does it mean anything? Are we actually calculating a true ROI, or is it just fluffed up numbers in some skewed calculator that I have where I can show you that if we follow my steps to the T, that you're going to get 8,000%, increase on uptime and eliminate downtime. The old joke we love to talk about, eliminate downtime completely, the biggest gimmick in the world right now. So I want to again challenge us to think differently. Leadership does care about ROI. They do. What more specifically the CFO cares about more is the return on asset. Again, ROA, the return on asset. So after we've bought hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment, are we getting the return that it is designed to do for us or not? Is it performing the way we need them to perform to help us meet the scheduled yield and keep a safe work environment? And are we being good stewards of those assets? Again, taking care of the investment that we've made in this equipment. It still baffles my mind that you have everyday Joes, let's call them, who spend a week maybe buying a car because they're trying to understand what's going to be the best return on their investment from an asset standpoint and what's the minimal amount of maintenance that they're going to need and cost on maintenance. Again, like why Toyota does a great job producing vehicles, because they do a great job on reliability of an asset overall. And then those same people walk into a manufacturing plant and just say, screw it, guys, we're going to run it to failure. And so why are we thinking like that? And maybe I'm lumping everybody else into one bubble and I shouldn't get all worked up about it. But I think if we're going to better communicate what we're trying to do, and I say we collectively as vendors and the practitioners themselves and the boots on the ground type people, it's speaking the language of the people that need to hear your concerns. And when you start throwing terms around like return on asset, you're going to get heads are going to start turning. They're going to be like, oh, this guy kind of gets it. What is our return on assets? So I've got some interesting statistics that I put together for this presentation. Let me see if I can get my act together and pull it around. Just industry standards here. So scrolling. Okay. A company that has a return on asset that is over 5%, that's one hand, right? Over 5%, that's considered good. So 5% of their investment, if they're returning that on the assets, that's good. That's a crazy low number in my opinion. 20% is excellent. But here, the real kicker is, I think it's like 60% of manufacturing companies aren't even measuring their return on asset. They're just not even doing it. And, maybe some people don't need to do that, but I don't know. If I was an investment company or if I was running a big manufacturing company and we just spent $500 million on all sorts of equipment, I would like to know, is it doing what we intend it to do? And is it going to bankrupt me or not? And what can I do to protect that?
Well,
and so from a leadership standpoint, I think the heart is there. It's that maybe they don't understand what needs to be done. And then you enter the stressors of, we got to meet production demands. We got to do this. We got to meet payroll. We got to do that. It's easy to get distracted. And so I think if we can encourage leaders to truly empower the people that they hire to do their job, which is reliability folks or maintenance managers or operations directors, to encourage them to say, hey, I want your goal outside of meeting our production yields to be get the maximum return on our assets. That's what I want. Maximum return on assets.
That's
I think naturally the ROI is going to come, right? Naturally, the quarterly earnings reports are going to look really great. Naturally, the overtime is going to steadily decrease on the maintenance and operations side of things. Your downtime is going to naturally decrease. Because if you're thinking about what is the return on the asset and how can I care for it? These other things are just, it's not magic. It's not, fairy dust going to happen, but you're going to be encouraged to think, okay, well, how can I take a better care of them?
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that your return on asset is a far better metric that's connected to the asset performance and that ultimate ROI. So it's almost like, I don't know if it's a new term. I just think it's a neglected part of the
Neglected.
process.
Agreed.
Or maybe neglect might be a little bit strong. Maybe people don't understand that is part of the equation, which is why it's a good thing to talk about. I want to do a lot more to explore this concept of return on asset. So we'll do a separate episode to get into that concept, because I'm getting ready to do something in August. It's called
Yeah.
the Throughput Manufacturing Summit. It's going to be
Love it.
it's 3 different days. A bunch of people that are putting on these learning sessions and all that. And you and I have been talking about, I want to do some of the stuff that I've been learning from you that is a good way for people to look at in short bites on these 3 different sessions. It'll be August 8th, then August 15th, then August 22nd. All day, each of these things, right? So I want to bring that into the mix on that, because it's directly connected to throughput. Throughput's everything, So if we take a step back with everything that you said, what we're talking about maintenance and reliability. We're really talking about asset performance management. That is in fact connected to the top and the bottom line. And sometimes when I think about this idea you just brought up about asset return on asset, that sounds to me like hey, this is business. Hey, this is business. It's not to neglect or ignore people. It's to say businesses run and thrive on profitability, cash flow, etc. Absent those things, there's not a business, not for very long. You'll eat up the cash that you have and then it'll be done. And now everybody goes home with no medical benefits, blah, 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 blah. Pile all that crap on there, right? And it's a better way to describe how an entity that manufactures something, provides something in the way of a service, whatever it might be, that's dependent on these assets, including those human assets. So,
Yeah,
and that's an actual thing. Return on a human asset. Like someone might say, "Oh, how can you talk about a person like that? They're not a piece of equipment." No, they're an absolute asset. They're a necessity. We rely upon them. We
investment.
want them
Yeah,
doing as well as they can. And if they're not, for one reason or another, that's of a concern. We want to figure out, how can we help you be better? Not just for our company, but
exactly.
fucking life, right? I mean, I don't know. Now I'm spinning
Yeah,
out. You got me up on the soapbox. I'm ready to go
I know,
scorched
man.
earth
It's
right here,
easy.
right now.
We're getting in it,
So,
dude. I love that. Yeah.
well, and that's the whole purpose. It's why you and I talk about this stuff, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be on an episode. We talk about it on the phone, we talk about it in
Yeah.
person, and we really carve stuff up. And so that's the thing for, anybody out there, whether you're watching or listening, we're intentional about trying to make a difference. We're not trying to sell you a bunch of shiny stuff. We don't even care if you're buying anything. We're saying, hey, look at what you're doing. Understand whether asset performance management could help you. And this idea about return on asset, it's a real thing that may have been overlooked, and maybe that wasn't on purpose. Now, any of you hearing it, go start talking about it. Figure out what it is. Call Alex if you want to know more, and we're going to have more info on that. So I want to give you the floor for our closeout, and then I'll
Oh
close out.
boy. Okay. Was this free talk for me? I can
Give
talk
us a
about
jewel or a
anything here.
takeaway for everyone on this episode to go and work
Okay.
on today, this week, or next week.
Yeah. I've got, dude. You inspired me on this one. Okay. Um, if you're working in a manufacturing plant, I don't care where you're working. If it's an asset intense organization, doesn't have to be manufacturing. Could be utility provider. I don't know. Insert your flavor of. I've got a shit ton of equipment that I got to take care of. Right. Um, your point is so spot on a minute ago that If if a company doesn't have a level of profitability, they can't keep the doors open. And if they have to close the doors, that negatively impacts not only the owners of the company, which I know, from our perspectives from time to time, it's like us against the man because the owner's making all the money. They make a dime, so I make a nickel, or what have you, or I make them a dime just to make a nickel. That's not what it's about, right? Yes, some people take advantage of that and they run, not great companies. Let's own that. But what I'm trying to get at here is entering that mindset of that your contribution to the organization is meaningless is only a recipe for failure. Not only for yourself, but for potentially the organization. Because just like you said, if the company isn't doing what it needs to do, not only are you out of a job and out of maybe healthcare, but the entire community has an impact of that. It goes beyond the immediate selfish need, because if your business exists and is doing well, you'll probably notice that there's a lot of restaurants that open up nearby because those factory workers want to go get lunch, dinner, breakfast, what have you. And then as a result, the ripple effect just goes and goes and goes. So if you're sitting at your job today and you're disheartened because you are in a reactive state, or you're disheartened because nobody's listening to you, or you're disheartened because you got passed up for a promotion, I get it. I do. And it's so, misery loves company, right? Like, it's so easy to get stuck in that mindset of I'm just a number and I don't mean anything to these people. I am going to challenge you to flip the script on that thought, and them being the people that you feel like aren't empowering you. Start thinking that, and not just thinking, knowing that your job is incredibly important to what the organization has to do. Your contribution could be the difference between meeting quarterly earnings reports and goals and not having to lay off 300 people. You specifically could be that person that ties the gap. Now, we talked about teamwork earlier. It does take the entire team, but if you've got one offensive lineman who's not doing their job right, the whole offensive team is up shit creek, right? So it takes everybody. So do things that are going to promote healthy activities within your organization, but can also promote you to be healthy. I think a good place to start is not only learning about return on asset, but then start thinking like, how can I improve things around here to maximize a return on asset? What are things I can do today that don't require me to spend money, that I can use Chat GPT for, quite literally, to understand how can I make things 2% better today? Because if you do 1% and 2% every day, you're going to start hitting big numbers over a period of time. And so, again, my challenge to you is change the way you think. Your job does matter. Your role is incredibly important, and understand you're on a team. And when you start thinking about return on asset, you're right. You're thinking about the business, and that should be important to you because that business is what's paying you, and it's what's propping up the entire economy and homes and your child's education and the food on your table. And that should be important to you. That should be more important to you than anything else. So, yeah, just try to be a little different. I know it's hard, guys. It's hard, but you can go out there and do it. I believe in you.
I love it, Alex. And it's always awesome having you on CMMS Radio for these candid conversations. We don't plan any of this other than, hey, we've got some stuff we want to talk about. We hope that's helped at least one person out there. But as we close out here, I just want to thank you once again for being with me here on CMMS Radio. It
was great.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.